How the heck are you, everybody? I am Fastidious. Welcome back to our series, All Heroes Ranked. That is where I'm going faction by faction, ranking every single relevant hero, so mostly the epics and the legendaries, from worst to first. Today we're talking the Star Piercers, an amazing faction, mostly marksmen, very cool units, lots of piercing damage left and right, but some really cool ones that happen to have magic damage. It is a great faction and we have a lot to discuss, but before we hop right into it, I want to remind you that every single video in this series, all 9 of them, will have 3 giveaways at the end. You will not want to miss it. A big thank you to Moonton for partnering with me on this to have some nice giveaways for you guys. So with that being said, let's talk Star Piercers and let's get into it.
Fastidious.
Fastidious.
Alrighty, folks, drum roll, please. Who is our absolute worst? Don't need a drum roll. He's absolute dog water. I hate this guy more than any other hero in the game. It's none other than he who must not be named, and I will not say his name once in this entire video. I despise this guy. I think he is absolute trash, even though he's a legendary marksman, legendary star piercer with that big, mighty AoE range. I don't care. This guy absolutely stinks. He's a beefy boy, and that's all he's got going for him. A cool cape, I guess. He's got like a wing, or not even a cape. He's got like a wing coming off his shoulder. He's trash. I don't want to talk about him any longer than I have to. He is one of the very, very, very few heroes in this game that I gave an F. He might actually be the only, actually I'm certain he is, the only legendary hero on fastidious.gg. That is my website, the best website in the realm. Go check it out. He's the only one that got an F of every single legendary hero, and I ranked every single one. Full tier lists, full grading. He sucks. F, 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 D, F, C, F, 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 D, D. We give him a B in faction trials just because if you need that AoE, you've got it. And then dash, dash, not applicable. A solid F in 6. This guy is trash. A B plus in Torrent. He's actually not that bad in Torrent. A B in Guild Wars. You'd have to be pretty desperate. F in single target arena. D in AoE arena. D in anti-air. Complete trash. He is straight up, easy peasy, full stop, completely out DPS'd by Maul. And not Maul at A1, not Maul at A5 even. I'm talking A0, full base awakening, nothing special. Epic Maul does better than this guy because he sucks. He's got this worm snare, whatever. He's a worm. He's got these stupid snares in his kit. They do a really poor job of dealing damage. They synergize really poorly with his kit in line with the content we have in this game. And the crowd control he puts out, the immobilizes, they don't make up for anything. This hero sucks. He is last for a reason. I'm never talking about him again. You cannot make me. Who's going to come in at number 22? Now we begin with the epics, and we have got Esme. What a tragic case this lady is. Esme was so promising for about like 5 days. They released her. She was a new epic piercer. She has a ton of poison. We were all very excited, but we actually knew deep down, because we saw what they were doing on Forerunner, a giant nerf was coming to poison, and she was hit with that almost instantaneously. The way poison works now is it's basically a damage over time that does magic damage based off of attack. Before, it was true damage based off of the target's max HP. That was super strong. When it was the case for that little bit of time, you can go check it out. Stormy Z has some great videos. She was a monster. I never even used her once because I knew the nerf was coming. It came almost immediately. She is pretty terrible. She's pretty terrible. I did a video with War Guides where we tested her after the nerf a lot on the test server before it came to global, and it's just nothing. You can bring Liam, who's actually a hero we're going to talk about later, who instead of having his poison nerfed to this terrible new version, they just changed his poison into something called neurotoxin, which is identical to the old poison. He's an uncommon hero that is infinitely better than Esme. She's pretty darn trash. I know some people still claim she's okay. I strongly disagree. With a base attack of 2,926, when a lot of her kit is built around bouncing around damage that is going to land poisons and then deal damage over time based off of that attack, and it's magic damage too, it's yuck. I don't like her. She's really not good in a lot of content. She's not terrible though. You can see we went from He Who Must Not Be Named down at an F all the way up to Esme at a C. It's not too bad. She's like fine. If you get her really early, you can build her to like 5 stars. If you're desperate, you can build her to 6 stars. She is not that special. No, not at all. So let's continue. Who is going to be next? At number 21, we have Tazira, one of our 4 Pokemon starter heroes. What do I mean by that? Well, in this game, your second summon ever is scripted to be an epic pull and actually an epic marksman. It can be Tazira, Idril, Brienne, or Theowin. All 4 of those heroes are piercers, so as you can see from this list, she is the last one. If you're stuck pulling her, maybe re-roll that account. She's not so terrible, but the other 3 are so much better. You're going to see they are ranked way, way higher up than she is. Tazira ain't that great. Let's actually be nice and talk about the positives she has going on for her. Here's Tazira. First things first, I think sneakily maybe the most attractive hero in the game. Oh my god, what a beautiful hero. Beautiful face. We love her. That's not the point, though. What's she actually good at in this game? She's speedy, speedy, speedy. Talent. The next attack performs 2 strikes for every 6 attacks. So every 6th attack, you're going to do a double hitter. That's basically 7 for every 6. Doesn't seem that relevant, but when you see how much she can spam attacks, you think, wow, she's probably really good at the Styx Codex boss. You are correct. That is the one place in the game she really shines. She's got an ultimate over here, Rapid Shot. Within 6 seconds, rapidly shoots at the enemy, and it's rapid. You can see the default attack interval of this skill is 0.33 seconds, and it becomes even shorter as the attack speed increases. She has a base attack interval, as we look over here, of 2.0, the complete and utter standard for single target marksman in this game, and for that reason, she can be rapidly quick. Is she the endgame meta option for Styx? No. But do a lot of people lack those endgame meta options and need Tazira? Yes, she's kind of like a machine gun with a bow and arrow. She's supremely good at Styx. Aside from that, it's kind of mid across the board. Gear Raid 3, she's like a decent carry, a decent DPS option early on and in the mid game, probably up through 18. By the time you reach 319 and higher, I think you'd be pretty unlucky to have to use Tazira. She's just not that special. Lots of low grades here. But then if we go to Styx, a very solid S. She doesn't get the S+ because she's, again, not going to make those endgame meta teams. But for so many people, you should include her on your team if you don't have, the top dog options. She's right there after it. She puts out a ton of hits. The damage really isn't much, but in Styx, it is not about how hard you are hitting the shield, but how often you are hitting it. And she's going to help you take down that shield, get into that vulnerable state, so your big DPSers can actually lay the damage down. All in all, Tazira, not too good, a very solid C, but in Styx, she's super relevant. So absolutely do not sleep on her. So who do we got now as we head into our top 20? Well, let's see. It is going to be another legendary hero. I know it's Destin's favorite hero in the game. If you don't know Destin, go check him out. He's got a ton of content on this guy. Unfortunately, he only came in at number 20 on my list, and that is going to be Apsan. So Apsan, I think, is interesting because he is a fighter, and I think it's just him and Aracha are the only fighters in this entire faction, so that right off the bat kind of makes him special. He also has what I call like Arrogance range, or Apsan range, or Zealatu range. It looks kind of like a hammer. It's a 2x3 that he's within in the tiles around him, and then there are an additional 2 tiles in front. You may look at this ultimate attack range and think, oh my god, that's a mistake. Technically, actually, it isn't. Most of you are probably used to using him with a Piercer Lord, so you think it's going to be a 3x4 rectangle, and it's going to be that full range, like what happens to Zealatu or Arrogance during that ult. Actually, for Apsan, it's not. This is his ultimate attack range, though you probably are used to using him with the Piercer Lord, in which case his entire normal range is going to be that filled out thing. He has a fine kit. What he does, he's a DPSer, he can hit airborne units all the time, he can put out multi-hits, all that should be okay, right? Because he's a legendary fighter, very unique to his faction. Why does he suck? Why does Destin actually hate him? And I was just clowning before. Well, the multipliers on this guy are beyond a joke. He hits like literally nothing. It's like he's throwing rubber duckies at you. This guy just ain't good. And it's not just about stats, guys. It's not just about having skills that read well. It's about those well-read skills and good stats being matched with strong multipliers. He falls shockingly short. It would take a pretty easy rework to make him good. Just make these numbers better. Airborne units take 650% damage instead from this. And then keep in mind, this is just a single burst. How about they take 300% damage, but this thing lasts for 12 seconds, or 15 seconds, or 20 seconds. One little burst of 3 penetrating shots, that ain't gonna cut it. The whole kit kind of reads like that. This guy just ain't special. I will say, some of you thought he might be lower on the list and an even worse ranking. I can't give him that bad a ranking because I have cleared 321 with him as my tank unit in the front, my melee unit. He puts out some damage, and then if you put him in a Lunacy Visor that allows him to self-heal, that special artifact, he can easily be a main tank And though it's not a lot of damage, he can give you enough extra that he actually is helpful, and I have used him effectively. It really is a last resort, you know, like a break in case of emergency, to use Apsan. If you have Arrogance, even though he's not the right faction, he is, no joke, 700 times better. It's not even close, but a lot of people don't have Arrogance, and a lot of people do need a little extra push in the middle. So if you're desperate, Apsan actually is a solid option. For AMR, he's like, fine. Again, the damage is terrible. And then I know some people won't be happy. I am giving him 1 S+, and that's Faction Trials. You can do it with only 1 melee unit, that being Livian. She's 100% free to play. You can fuse her. We'll talk about her later. But it's definitely easier to beat stage 12 of Piercer Faction Trial with 2 melee units, and your only other options after Livian, who's the only defender in the whole faction, are going to be Apsan, who's a legendary fighter, but then Aracha, who's a very rare legendary lord who most people, yours truly included, probably will never pull. So for me, when I pulled Apsan, I beat Piercer Trial the next time it came up. He literally is how I did it. You can do slow techniques and, you know, beat it without him, but it requires a tremendous amount of DPS. It's really hard. He makes the whole thing a ton easier. I do think he shines there. Aside from that, he's kind of trash. There was a time back in the day where there was briefly, very briefly, a meta. This is just if you want some like history of the game. There was a meta where Apsan was in some goated top teams for anti-air, but we outgrew that pretty quickly. He's not good. He's not good one bit. Does he deserve as bad a rap as he gets? In my opinion, no. He's frickin' terrible, but we have other frickin' terrible heroes in this game, and he is certainly not on the level of this piece of garbaggio over here. Number 19, what a beautiful number. We have got Alaura. Some people say Alaura's good. Those people are wrong. Alaura's not good. Alaura has a cool kit, but just like Apsan, and I really don't want to spend a lot of time on Alaura because I hate her, her multipliers are hideous. Hideous. You were going to see, it was just announced today officially, so I can talk about it. We have a new epic Piercer Lord coming to this faction who also has invisibility, and she hits harder than Alaura. She's an epic. She doesn't even have that great a kit. She doesn't even hit that hard. She blows Alaura out of the water. All the time. I've probably done at least minimum 300 Gear Raid 3 19 plus takeovers in my life, between 19 and 21. I will avoid her at all costs. The amount of accounts I've beaten 321 on that had Alaura, did not have hot sit, and I just left Alaura on the bench and never even brought her, it would really surprise you. It's almost all the time. I avoid her like the plague because she hits like a sopping wet noodle. The only way you can make her work at all, well, I will say for 319, she's excellent because you really don't need much DPS, so the fact that she is invisible, you can put her on the right, she will make it easier, that's cool, but we don't really care about beating 19s. When it comes to the OG gear raids, we want to beat 20 and 21. She is basically useless without tremendous gear, and if you have tremendous gear, you can probably beat it more easily without her. The only way you can even get her hitting okay is if you get her A1, which, to be fair, she's a common bucket legendary. It's not that hard to get, but, you know, you can't count on it. This is going to turn all her excess crit rate into crit damage. This makes her really easy to build. You can put a crit rate bangle on her, stack stuff to the moon. You can get a half decent build, but at the end of the day, when she's got basement attack at 3,600, you know, it's not so low for a legendary marksman, but it's certainly on the lower end and it's not high. And then these awful multipliers, that can only get you so far. It still takes tremendous gear. You cannot beat Gear Raid 321 with Alaura on the right unless she's in really, really good gear, or if she's in okay gear, but then your Idril's completely compensating. If that's the case, you probably could have focused more on Idril, ignored Alaura altogether, and she could have done it all herself. Alaura to me is a total L. You'll see we give her a B because, I mean, she's not that bad, but I just kind of hate her. Gear Raid 3, I still give her an A+ because she's going to help people tremendously up through 19. Void Rift, she's solid. For those Ludwig stages, the invisibility can be kind of clutch. Aside from that, I just don't like her very much at all. We did give her an A+ for faction trials, mostly because she's dual faction. She's in Watchguard and Star Piercers, but all in all, I think she sucks. I think Alaura sucks. Fight me about it. She sucks. Seriously, fight me in the comments. Like, I'll take it. If you want to champion Alaura in the comments, I'll respond to each one. But I think you'd be a crazy person to do it. Who's up next? It's going to be number 18, and we've got Vargas back to the epics. Vargas is kind of slept on because he's a little clunky to use, and because he's kind of rare, he's only available from Ancient Summoning, even though he's an epic. Most people eventually will get him, but he is an Ancient exclusive epic, a very rare thing in this game. He's actually the only example. When Jorge came to the game, I thought it would be the same case, but no. You can get Jorge with normal summons. Vargas, not so much. So because he's rare, I think people don't realize that he's actually pretty good. He hits really, really hard. Simple as that. I know some wacky Kraken accounts that have like amazing gear, have geared him out like crazy, and he does like over 200 million damage in Guild Boss. He can do some really cool things on budget teams in Guild Boss 2 as well. It's just a solid kit. There's not too much to talk about. He puts out very consistent bleed. He can hit really, really hard. He actually has invisibility as well. It's hard to get it going because he needs to be in those longer fights to, get his DPS going. But theoretically, you could use him on the right just like you do Alaura. Honestly, it's no big difference. They both kind of suck there. But for boss content, he can be really good because he has very high uptime on the bleeds. That's going to lead to damage over time for him, and then also increased physical damage taken for whatever enemy's wearing that. And then also, when you fight these bosses like Guild Boss 1 and Guild Boss 2, a lot of times it's registering as them having HP less than 30, so actually all his basic attacks are going to be double hitters. That's pretty darn special. And it also allows him to cycle his ult very frequently. The guy can put out pretty substantial DPS when you start getting these awakenings going. It's pretty cool stuff. He's a pretty darn solid epic. He's going to be like a budget option for better things, but if you need an epic that theoretically can deal a ton of damage, I mean a ton, it's kind of Vargas. He's really good. We're giving him a solid B+, A+ in Guild Boss 1. I think he's really good there. Guild Boss 2, he is serviceable. The bleeds are nice and the damage is solid. You can see everywhere else, nothing too special. He's fine in Gear Raid 3. Moving on. It's okay. It's all pretty okay. I kind of like him in anti-air, but all in all, he's a pretty decided, honestly, I'd say B, but because he can shine, and I've seen him actually help a lot of people progress in Guild Boss 1, I did want to give him that plus, and I wanted to make sure you know that I think Vargas is better than Alaura. Moving on, who's it going to be? Moving on, who is next on our list? We have got over here number 17, lucky number 17, Lili. So Lili is a hero people hated forever until Guild Wars came around and a meta evolved to include Lili, and boy oh boy is she nuts good. She's a pretty darn good healer. Her multipliers are actually better than I always thought they were. And the really key thing is going to be this passive down here, Thorny Protection. Prevents incoming fatal damage one time for one ally in range, and immediately grants that ally a shield, blah, 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 blah. Can only be triggered every 60 seconds. But that guaranteed full death save, basically a momentary unyielding with the big shield for 20 seconds, it is significant. It makes her super, super pesky in stuff like Guild Wars. She's darn solid. Honestly, she is. For the content she's good at, she is fantastic at. And for that reason, we give her a pretty solid grade. I think she's still a B+, because for a lot of content, you just won't use her. But when it comes to something like Guild War, you will see her on some of the best teams in the whole realm. The best players in the game will still use her. She's kind of like a budget Carnelian, but really, really effective because the heals are absolutely there. A decided S+. And then I got to shout it out. It kind of drops off. To my understanding, it drops off a cliff for Stage 6, but up through Stage 5, she's kind of brilliant for cheesing parts of Gear Raid 5. So don't sleep on that either. I think Lili is actually pretty darn good. Not every hero needs to be good at every piece of content. Not every hero is hot sit or something, right? Lili is good at what she is good at, and it's as simple as that. Also, pretty darn good at faction trials. Absolutely worth mentioning that as well. Who's going to be number 16? We're getting down the list now, guys. We've got Calypso. Calypso is a hero I absolutely adore. I use her even at base awakening. When people think of Calypso, they think of, oh, you need to get awakenings on her. And absolutely, that takes her to the next level, and that's what's going to keep her rating down here at only a B+. If she had some of the cool things that come with Awakenings built into her, even at Awakening 0, she'd get a much, much better score, but you cannot count on Awakenings, so for that reason, she gets the B+. But even unawakened, even at A0, I have used her successfully on 321, fulfilling the Silas role, like the main other DPS besides Idril, the one that's going to be a little closer to the boss, putting out some solid DPS. She is clunky to use because of her ultimate. Her whole kit is built around these seal stones. Basically, she has an auto ult that summons periodically these seal stones, and each one helps her deal damage and deals extra hits. It's pretty cool, and at base awakening, 4 of those can exist at the same time. So once she gets the 4th one up, this ultimate's done. She's like at her max potential. Everything else is about her basic attacks and her passives. But the damage is really good. It takes a long time, so she can't be good in a lot of content because you need it to be a long battle where you can slowly wait for her to rev up and put out more and more seal stones. But for content like that, like Gear Raid 3, where it's not like you need some big flurry of damage at the beginning, you just need a big amount of damage by the middle, she can get there when she gets those seal stones up, even at Awaken 0. I will say, The Awakenings are special. If you get her A1, whenever one of those Seal Stones deals damage, she gets 5 more rage. It might not seem like much, but as she gets those Seal Stones up, like clockwork, they're going to have the same attack interval as her. So if it's 1 second, every second when one of those hit, or 2 of those hit, or 3 of those hit, she's going to get 5 more rage per hit. So 5, 10, or 15, depending on the number of Seal Stones. The reason I don't say a 4th one is, remember, once she has her 4 Seal Stones and she's at max, she can't keep producing them. So it's kind of over. So rage is meaningless at that point. I do want to point out this A2 is wrong. This should be plus 300 attack. The website is always a living, breathing work in progress. The final awakening we have to talk about, of course, is going to be your A5. This just straight up raises the Seal Stone cap to 5. So now it's not she's getting maxed out at 4, she's getting maxed out at 5. What does that mean? Let's transition into the thing she's absolutely best at in this whole game. If you have her A5, every single one of her hits, once you get those 5 Seal Stones up, is actually a sextuple hitter. And that is crazy. Combine that with this passive over here, Evil Protection, that can lead to 2-hit combos. You can have 12-tuple hits, whatever you call 12ables. I mean, that is insanity. So what am I talking about? Styx. She is beyond goated. She is a definitive S+. If you've got a Cetrum and you've got a Calypso, like this guy over here, you are absolutely cooking. You are tearing through those shields. So we talked about Tazira is a great option if you don't have the absolute endgame meta units. Calypso is one of those endgame meta units. The way she's absolutely meta is if you've got her A5. So imagine if you had a Cetrum and an A5 Calypso like this guy over here, you're absolutely cooking, baby. She's crazy. She puts out so many hits. Her and Cetrum basically alone can carry the whole thing. But even without Cetrum, I'm just talking about him because he's the best at it in the game. Her and some other good units are putting out a multitude of hits. She's nutty. I mean, the quantity of hits are crazy. You can build her at like 0.8 seconds. She's rapid. Aside from that, once you get the Seal Stones up in those longer battles, the damage is legit. So in Guild Boss 2, she puts out really solid damage. Gear Aid 3, I almost even gave her an S. I didn't because she's not a top option, but definitively she does get the job done. I do not like when I hear people complaining that they can't do it because they don't have Silas. You can't do it easily with bad gear because you don't have Silas. You can do it once you farm up good gear easily without Silas. You can use Calypso or something like that. It just takes longer because you need good gear, like you do for all the hard content in this game, unless you have completely and utterly broken heroes like Silas, who we will talk about much later. He's going to be at the very end of this list. How high? You're going to have to wait to find out. Styx, she's goated. Other stuff, she's fine. Anti-air, I still see people using her. It takes too long to get the stones up. It's not worth it. That is going to be Calypso. Now we're really getting into the top heroes in this faction. Top 15, who's it going to be? Liam, an uncommon unit, but that's Liam. When they redid and nerfed poison, it was the biggest buff ever for Liam because he got to keep the OG poison, which is now called Neurotoxin. And that is it. That is his whole kit. He is just a normal piercer with terrible base stats because he's uncommon. I mean, absolutely awful. Look at those overalls. Terrible stuff, but he's uncommon. That's what it is. The key thing, he's got a 2.0 second base attack interval, make him go really fast. He's got a low cost ult, and he has the true poison, the OG poison, Neurotoxin, that is going to be consistent damage over time, not based on anything in his kit. All he has to do is place it, and it scales as true damage based off of the enemy's max HP. It's monstrous. For Gear Aid 3, the guy is a freak, and like for a lot of this other content, you can cheese a lot of stuff. I know War Guides beat Chapter Alpha very effectively with Liam as the main DPS. Neurotoxin is that powerful. Pour one out for Cutter and Screef and Cuke and Esme, all these fallen heroes that now suck because the poison doesn't work with them and their terrible base stats. But for Liam, he got to keep the OG version called Neurotoxin, and it makes him very special. So overall, he's an A, and that's really entirely on the back of the fact that if you don't have Silas and you want to complain, how about you use the uncommon Liam? He's as free to play as it can be for Gear Aid 3, and totally he can do the job done. I will say you need a Piercer Lord to really make it work, but if you're desperate enough to bring in Liam, hopefully you at least have a Piercer Lord to pair him with, and he'll do the job beautifully. Very cool hero. AMR, the way I used to always use Cutter to nuke down the boss, the most free-to-play way to do it now is going to be Liam with his Neurotoxin, so that's a place he gets a big bump. Cutter was just definitively better than him through and through for AMR, not for Gear Aid 3. He was always goated for that, but for AMR it was Cutter. Now he's the only hero that can do it, because everyone else got that giant nerf hammer. Liam is great for that. Otherwise, there isn't much else. I will say Neurotoxin can be effective in Arbiter. You can throw him in an Invig set too, so he's also buffing one of your main DPSs, the way many people used to do that with Cuke. Pour one out for Cuke. Essentially, for the things he's good at, because of Neurotoxin, he's pretty darn good. You might think giving Liam an A is crazy, I don't think so. I honestly think he deserves it. Who's going to be number 14? We're getting towards that top 10. We've got Nissandei. Really not much to say here. Nissandei just puts out monster heals. Really, really huge things. She's got great multipliers. She's got a nice range, which remember will be extended another row if you have a Piercer Lord. That makes her really, really effective. And those heals can bounce around a ton. That's a key part of her kit. Because of that, there's almost an AoE quality to it. She doesn't do anything more than that besides putting out a lot of attack speed boost, which isn't anything to be slept on. It's nothing like the rage regen of a Hollow or an Eloin or a Leia, but at least it's something. I will say if you get her A3, this is really cool. As long as she is deployed, every single other deployed ally is going to get 30 more attack speed. There's no other condition. It's just permanent as long as she's down there. I think that's really strong. She can be really effective when you just need some good healing and maybe an attack speed boost. She's a great option when you don't have the absolute top meta healers. I think she's really slept on, really underrated. Guild Boss, she can be excellent. She can heal everybody because that thing bounces around. Guild Boss 2, meh. Gear Aid 1, she's the best non-meta healer in the game, so for that we give her an A+. Gear Aid 3, she's an enormous carry for the early stages, all the way up through 19, because her extended range and the bounces really ease your healing burden. I will say AMR, she's a really good choice. The attack speed helps, and she can heal everybody in the core range that is getting hit by the boss's big old AoE. Aside from that, Faction Trials, she's completely goated. And then a key thing, Golem. She can out-heal so many legendaries in this game, especially with those bounces. 4 healer codex, aka the Golem. She's absolutely great. Aside from that, kind of mid across the board, but those key things she does really well, and that is kind of the theme here. She is a decided A and a very underrated hero. Who do we have next? Is it going to be another epic, or are we back to legendaries? It's another epic, baby, and a 100% free-to-play one. All of you will get her because it's part of your initial mission quest things you get. You have to collect the rare heroes, the uncommon heroes, promote them, level them, and then they say, hey, fuse Livian, and that's how you learn how to fuse heroes in this game. Livian is amazing. I honestly think she's slept on because she's free. I think people think free isn't special because it's not exclusive since everybody gets it, but she is really darn good. Another mistake here, Livian is dual faction. She's Star Piercers and Watchers. I got a whole list going now, guys. That makes her really special because you kind of need tanks for both of those faction trials, and she's a great option for both. She just got a really, really, really solid kit. Let's talk about her ultimate. It's just a straight up deploy her, and this is a permanent effect. She receives this blessing, and from that blessing, she gains an additional 20% physical damage reduction permanently. Meanwhile, whenever she does these shield bounces that you learn about later in your kit, which are triggered by her attacks, she can restore 1% more HP. How exactly does that work? Well, you can see with her basic attack, every 3 attacks launch, there's going to be a shield bounce. It inflicts stun on the target. This makes her really cool for a lot of stuff. As a tank, it's easier to tank when the targets trying to hit you are stunned. And then also for new content like Guild Boss 2, she is super duper strong. You can't upgrade this thing, but whenever you get those every 3rd attack moments, you're going to restore 3% HP. Remember what I said, this thing over here is permanent, the ult. So you can just add that extra 1% heal on top of this. She self-heals, she puts out stun so she takes less damage. She's very tanky because she puts out this physical damage reduction. All in all, really solid stuff. She's just an incredibly, incredibly solid tank. She's not Olog, who's another 100% free-to-play tank, so for that she gets an A. Olog's certainly a bit better, but you're going to use her in a lot of content. Guild Boss 2, those stuns, absolutely relevant. If she was a little bit better for Apocalypse 2, the harder of the 2 levels, I probably would give her an A+ or even an S, but because I just think she's not a top option there, we give her a very solid A. Gear Aid 2, she's super nice. You can watch my epic only guides, my minimum guides. I always use Livian. She's so easy. The build requirement is also really low because she's just consistently taking less damage because of the stuns. The enemies aren't able to hit her as frequently, and she's always healing herself back up. Really, really cool hero. AMR, she's a great choice. Void Rift, I really love her. Faction Trial, she's goated because she's in both Piercer and Watcher, and she's a very viable tank for both. All in all, I just really, really like Livian. Now for number 12, who's it going to be? Razaak. I know a lot of people like Razaak, and I certainly don't hate Razaak. I know a lot of other people absolutely hate Razaak. All in all, he's pretty fine. He's an AoE marksman. He does it pretty darn well. He is definitely not as good as Maul, in my opinion, and he is not even close to Nyx, especially once you get some awakenings on her. But the damage is legit. The burst is legit. He's really viable for a lot of cool things. And I do have to mention, and this gave him a bump in our rankings, the special passive he has, XP Mastery, is really, really good. I've never pulled Razaak, and I want him specifically for this. Any XP you gain in any battle, as long as you have Razaak on your squad, you don't even need to deploy him, it's going to be increased by 5%. Then if you also have Captain Reeve, it unlocks the Bond skill Title Heritage, and then it doubles that. So 10% increased additional XP total. That's really good. Razaak, nice bursty DPS, not the top AoE marksman at all in the game, and I do think Maul and Epic is significantly better. That being said, he's pretty good. Gear Raid 3, he is great for the left-hand side. If your gear is really hurting, you could choose him over Maul. If your gear is even half decent, I would still pick Maul first. Gear Raid 2, he can main DPS it. He's not the best option. He's a little clunky at 22 costs, and it's hard to time the trigger of the tentacles of his ult coming out of the ground. That being said, he absolutely can do it. So even though he's not Hot Sit or Virna, he's a great burst option for that, and he does have nice base stats. You'll see going through it, he's just supremely solid. He's a very solid A. For Torrent, he's amazing. That's the main reason I want him. He is going to reach the top meta teams, so if you aren't using him there yet, you absolutely should be. But all in all, just a very solid A. The guy deserves it, let's be honest. I know some of you guys hate pulling him, but he's not that bad. All right, before our top 10, who is number 11? It is going to be Theowin. So our second of the 4 Pokemon marksmen, Tazira was all the way back here at 21. We had to wait till 11 to get our second out of 4 Theowin. That means 2 of those starter epics you can get your first hour or 2 in the game make our top 10 for the whole faction. I think that is really cool. What is so special about Theowin? Let me find him first. Well, this blind blade swirler guy, he puts out pretty solid AoE, especially once you get some awakenings. You're definitely, if you want to use him for damage, you're definitely going to want to have him A5. But the key thing for him is really steady, really consistent AoE slows. The A1 is huge for that, increasing the slows potency from 50% slows to 75% slows. And then also the A3 is going to have a huge rage restoration that leads to more ults, that leads to more damage. All in all, just very solid, consistent slows. The damage can be good. People will use him in the end game, especially in anti-air arena, because he fits really nicely into a piercer team where he can do a little bit of damage, but just really do crazy crowd control. I am going to eventually build my Theowin out really well once I have enough gear to specialize every single arena team. Until then, I'll keep using Mari, but he's really effective. I see him all the time, and he can actually be really scary because the damage can be really good when he has nice gear, and the slows, as always, are significant and steady and punishing to go up against. You'll see he's pretty solid in a lot of content. He's just a very decently great hero. Not much more to say about Theowin. He's not as good as the other 2 marksmen we haven't mentioned yet, but those slows really make him potent. Anti-air, he's borderline S+. He is really good. I don't want to give him S+, because then people will think, oh, you have to use him. He's not that quality, but in certain teams, certain elite level, high end, Apex Arena, or even going for tops on the server team, they're going to be using Theowin. He's a nasty guy. He is really good. So next up, who do we have to start our top 10? We have got another Pokemon marksman, Brienne. Brienne, I love. If you've been watching me from the beginning, she's one of the patron saints of my channel. I freaking love this girl. She is dual faction, and we didn't mess it up this time. Just like Livian, Watchguard, and Star Piercer, her burst damage is absolutely significant. She is the kind of hero you are going to want to get awakenings on. The A1, the effective multi-shot. Another typo, I'm going to go crazy. She gets 30% physical penetration. That just means she ignores 30% defense. That is awesome. Split shot damage, this is one of her auto passives. This is increased by 20% at A3. But then A5, the number of arrows to begin with on her split shot is +1. Once you get those awakenings cooking, the damage is absolutely legit. She's a great option, especially when you are progressing for anti-air. I used her for months, and actually, she's a good DPS option for Gear A3 all the way up to 21. I used her on my own account for my first ever clear on 21, where I didn't use any hot sit, didn't use any Alaura, nothing like that. No one on the right side, just a Brienne in the bottom right corner to pick off those last fools. Perfect. You even can, if you have good gear, use her in that Silas spot, your main straight on DPS. She's that nasty with her multi-shot ultimate, with her split shot over here, and then with what comes from her A1, that multi-shot being paired with a 30% penetration, ignoring defense. That allows her to shine even though she has this very low epic marksman 2862 attack. She can be really good. So for me, overall, she's a solid A+. Main places she's going to shine, we've got Gear Gear Raid 3, very good in campaign and faction trials. Faction trials especially good because she's in 2 factions. And then I love her in anti-air arena. I really do. Arguably, she might be an A, but I think she's such a heavy carry for so many people, and the damage is so underrated. I wanted to be sure to give her an A+. Now for number 9, who do we got? It's Luneria, so our only epic Piercer Lord, though we do know we have a second one coming very soon. More content on that in the very near future. Luneria, though, this entire rating basically is built upon the fact that she is the Piercer Lord almost everyone uses. Most people are not lucky enough to get an Aracha and are not super lucky enough to get a Iovar, so you're stuck with Luneria or no Piercer Lord at all. That will change very shortly because we have a new shard summoning event coming for the new girl, but Luneria has filled that role for many people for a very long time, myself included, and just having that Piercer Lord is game changing. I bring Luneria to this day into tons and tons of content just because I have heroes like Silas and like Hex, who we'll talk about very soon, and having a Lord makes all the difference. Also, in Gear Raid 3, we have to mention, can you beat it without a Piercer Lord? Absolutely. I've done it many times. Is it so much easier to do it with the Piercer Lord? Yes, it is, and that's where Luneria comes in. So let's talk about it. Why isn't she higher on this list? Well, she deals magic damage, and she doesn't deal it in a super strong way like someone like Hex does, a Piercer who also deals magic damage, but does it very well. She just doesn't hit hard. Her multipliers are bad. It is as simple as that. This kit is boring as hell. She's got these cool things. I was so excited when I got her. I actually pulled her right before her initial shard summoning event way back like last October. I was so pumped. I put all my skill ups into her. I thought she was going to hit really hard. She really, really doesn't. The fact that she's not doing Piercer damage, but she is the Piercer Lord, and so much of the content you bring a Piercer Lord to, you need piercing damage to break the light armor. You do not need magic damage because there is no heavy armor. It just doesn't add up. It never has. She's just a bad DPS. How can she be good as a deployable unit? In my opinion, there is only one way, and that comes at A5. At A5, Dark Moon Arrow, which is a key part of her kit, is going to also inflict Immobilize. This is a full, temporary, 100% slow, and that is powerful. It just stops enemies in their tracks. I've used her with great effect, not just on my account, but many other people's accounts if they have an A5 Luneria in Void Rift, because that amount of crowd control is really awesome, and most people are going to bring her anyway because she's the Piercer Lord of top tier units like Silas and Hex. Let's go to the tier ratings now. I'll just scroll through it. I don't need to explain each one. It's as simple as she gets really good ratings because she is a good Lord. Her Lord skill is very strong. Deploying her rarely is a good idea, but to this day, I still use her in anti-air. I have to use her in Torrent. I use her in Void Rift every single week. She's a special character for that, but if I'm being perfectly transparent, when we get this new Epic Piercer Lord, more on that very, very shortly, she will be better than Luneria in basically every way. 8 remain, guys. Who is it going to be at the 8th spot? We have got our first ancient exclusive hero, and that is Pelagios. You'll see him in the next one. It was very hard for me to decide who was going to be 8 and who was going to be 7. These top 8 are excellent heroes. Pelagios is freakishly good. He, like Luneria, is also a magic damage dealer, which is weird as heck, but his multipliers are fantastic, his kit works really, really well, and he's got crazy AoE. AoE and dealing magic damage tend to go really, really nicely, and he's a nasty guy for that. For things like Gear Raid 1 or like Furious Torrent, he is crazy, because if you're wondering why Furious Torrent, don't you need piercing damage there? Well, when he does those huge AoEs with the great kit, he also is putting out Radiant Erosion. What does Radiant Erosion do? It's true damage over time based on the target's defense. He puts out really, really consistently. It is a key, unique part of his kit that comes from his dual faction membership in the Arbiters, and it is super strong. I mean, there's RNG involved on when it triggers and where it lands, but ignoring all that defense and the damage being straight up based off of the enemy is really, really cool. This guy is super strong. He's got really good awakenings, and all in all, he's a really nasty guy. If we go straight to the end, he is a total freak in Guild Wars. I avoid him like the plague. Furious Torrent, like I said, he can be clunky to use because there's kind of an RNG involved on how the Radiant Erosion's working, but when it is working, oh my god, it is working so, so good. He is also now, with some new metas, fitting into some of the best AoE arena teams and best anti-air arena teams, so you can see a very, very good PvP hero, great in Torrent, very good in faction trials, just a really solid hero across the board. Really nice in Void Rift because a lot of people are going to run Piercer comps, and if you need AoE magic damage, who needs a mage when you can bring Pelagios? And then I do want to say he can be your primary DPS for Gear Raid 1. A lot of people don't think of him because he's not a mage, and you think of that being a mage stage, but essentially he can function like that. He can do really disgusting things. Pelagios is an S, and he absolutely deserves it. Now to number 7, I told you it was kind of a toss-up with these two, and you'll see once I show you, we've got Sargak. So our second Ancient Exclusive Legendary that makes the list, Pelagios was Arbiter and Piercer. Now Sargak is Chaos and Piercer, and they kind of are opposites, right? Pelagios is doing big AoE magic damage. Sargak is an absolute machine gun for piercing damage. He's really, really nasty. He's really slept on because he's kind of hard to make work because he's at his fullest potential when he's on the verge of death. As you can see over here with his passive Bellicosity, increases attack speed by 6 for every 1% HP loss. The effect of specialized attack speed, and by the way, he has specialized attack speed. That means the amount of attack speed that you have to put on him to lower his attack interval is far lower than your standard hero. So your attack speed goes a lot further in terms of dropping him way, way down. But that effect is going to be stronger the lower his HP goes. If he can be on the verge of death, very chaotic of him, he is literally a machine gun. It's just endless arrows. It is crazy. He's putting out bleeds all the time. He's ignoring tons of defense. He's really, really good. You cannot do that in every piece of content. So there's certain content you think he would be goated in and he's just good, but the content you can do that in, he's absolutely goated. He's like triple S. He's freakishly good. I would love to pull this guy. Another S overall. You'll see Guild Boss. You'd think he'd be so good, but actually there's no way unless you're running some very specific Chaos team with Carnelian, which most people aren't going to do because it still isn't going to be top meta. Unless you're doing that, he's usually going to be healed up and you're just going to lose out on the whole key part of his kit. Similar thing for Guild Boss 2 as well, though Carnelian strats can be a lot more viable, so you can get a slightly better bang for your buck in using that passive. If we continue though, Gear Raid 3 after Silas for that main middle DPS on the boss getting paired with Idril, he is literally second bar none. If you really need the damage, you can even do it so he's not getting healed at all. Besides like a Dolores, you can keep that really, really low. He won't kill himself and he won't get hit. Really, really so good. If you're frustrated that you don't have Silas and then you just have a Sargak sitting there unbuilt, he will be the key. I've used him in so many takeovers for people that are like, I'm stuck, I need your help, I don't have Silas. I'm like, dude, you have Sargak, bang, bang, boom, 321 in the books. He's also very good for Gear Raid 5, especially again if you're going to run a Carnelian thing, but even without it, he's a very solid option for single target physical damage, in this case piercing damage, but just in general you need the physical damage. Void Rift, he's quite nice. Faction Trials, quite nice. But the key things, guys, Styx also very nice, and if you can control it that he's on the verge of death, even nicer. Some of these Iovar teams, potentially, if that meta continues to evolve, he could reach S+. Also good in Arbiter because of the bleeds, and quite good in Torrent because, you know, even though it's single target, it is very strong piercing damage. But the key things, guys, he is freakishly good in PvP. He's desired by all endgame PvP players. Guild Wars, I mean, you can control that he's never going to get hit, right? If you place him in the right spot, he can go down to 0. I avoid him like the plague. Again, he is so punishing. Single target arena, oh my god, it's ridiculous. And then anti-air, he is the best anti-air unit in the game. He's better than Silas. He is so good. Sargak should not be slept on. So who's number 6 before we hit our top 5? We've got Nyx. And I know Nyx is the hottest thing in the world right now. I mean, if you ask Serby, she's always been the hottest thing in the world. But I mean, in terms of gameplay, she's really become more and more relevant every day now. This shows you how powerful our top 5 is. This is a very, very good faction. So for Nyx, go back to my old videos. I got her very early. She was like my 4th legendary ever. I have always sung her praises. Always. I mean, I never thought she was going to be as good as she's become now, but I've always said since the beginning, since I started playing this game, she's the best source of AoE piercing damage in this game. So once we need it, she will be a superstar. And wouldn't you know it, content was added where we need it. Gear Raid 5. Excellent. She can do the hot sit job. Not as easily, not as well, but she can do it. You can beat stage 6 of Gear Raid 5 with Nyx instead of hot sit. Brilliant stuff. Go check out Ronaldo's video. He's the first one, I believe, that documented that. And then if we go to Torrent, she is by far, for Furious Torrent Codex, by far the best hero in the game. While we are over here, I will say, and I'll move myself out of the way for a moment, there's so many new metas right now that people are using with Nyx in Arena. In AoE Arena and anti-air, she is crazy. She's kind of always been good in Guild Wars, but she's just really had a crazy come up. She's such a good hero. She's always been, since day one I've said this, the best option for the left side in Gear Raid 1. It is so easy to build her. You can get away with really hideous builds. Like we said, Gear Raid 5, really cool. You'll see over here she is an A. That is not true. She is an S+. We just never updated it, but I have it in the new update that's coming out next week. She is so good. There really isn't much more to say. The only thing I guess I can say is she's clearly like this vampire design, and yet she has no bleed in her kit, no kind of self-healing in her kit, nothing vampiric. I think they do that way too often in this game, where they have some clear lore, some clear design influences, and then the kit just doesn't match. But if you want amazing AoE piercing damage, there literally is no better source than Nyx. Number 5, we have got Idril. Back in the day, I rated her as the second best epic in the game after Dolores. I don't have her that high anymore, but she's definitely still top 5. Idril is the carry of all carries and our 4th and final Pokemon marksman. If you want to reroll for anything in this game, it is getting Idril as that first Pokemon marksman, epic marksman scripted summons, because she's a freak. Her multipliers are really good. Her dual faction, again, just like Brienne and Livian and Watchguard and Star Piercers, is very strong. And oh my god, what is this ultimate attack range? What is it, 1 square? No. We had literally no way of visualizing this. When she is ulting, she can hit anywhere on the map. It's crazy. It just is. Her limitless shots, her ultimate, is just as crazy as it gets. It can hit anywhere on the field. If you get her A5, every time you kill someone during the ultimate limitless shots, and that happens a lot in content like Gear Aid 3, you are going to extend the duration of that ultimate by 3 seconds. It's really as crazy as it sounds if you have not yet tried it. She is completely goated for this. There is one slept on thing or misunderstood thing in her kit, and that is her passive combo shots, and this, when used well, is actually what takes her to that next level to be a freakish DPS. Every time an ally casts their ultimate during her ultimate, the next attack will deal 50% increased damage. That is ridiculous. On top of that, airborne units take 30 extra damage instead. We wrote that exactly as it's written in the game. It is not instead, it is on top of. So when another ally does an ult, let me move myself out of the way, she will deal increased damage, and you can see it goes up by another 50%, 100% increased damage, and then if it is an airborne unit, that's another 40%, so 70%. So if she was going to deal 100% damage, she now will deal 270% damage. When you time this out right, it is a 2.7x multiplier on her next hit, and that is the difference between someone squeaking through in Gear Aid 3 and getting absolutely demolished. The girl is ridiculous. She is the single best hero. It is not a conversation. She's better than Silas. She is the single best hero in the game for Gear Aid 3. Can you beat it without her? Yes. Should you ever? No. If you have her A5, there's nothing better in the entire game, including all the legendaries, including Silas, including Iovar. There's no one better for Gear Aid 3 than Idril. I stand by that. You can have her solo DPS the whole thing if you've got a Iovar or an Aracha and a good enough build. She is that nutty. She's kind of good at everything else. She might see a big come up in a couple pieces of boss content because Leia is getting a buff, so maybe we can take advantage of that Watchguard synergy. It could be really nice. Another piece of content to shout out is Void Rift, because she can hit anywhere on the map. She's an amazing kind of safety valve, like again, break in case of emergency. Just snipe that last thing you need to get sniped. She might be the best hero in the game for campaign, especially since so many people get her early on, and she just kind of trivializes a lot of maps and she can hit anywhere. Faction trials, she's ridiculous for both of these factions. All in all, Idril is just so good. I will say in Arena, I almost want to bump her down to an A+ in anti-air, just because there's so many people outpacing her, but because she's the hardest progression carry in the game for anti-air, she has to say S. For everything else, she's pretty fine. I mean, Idril is completely goated. She is an S+. She's a top 5 epic in the game. Nothing else needs to be said. Our final 4, these 4 are crazy strong. Let's get number 4 out of the way because we don't have too much to say. It's going to be Aracha. She is our first of the 2 legendary lords in this faction. Aracha's kit is not that good. She can do her spiderweb thing, which is like her version of a stun. That is really nice. It is very pesky in Guild Wars. She also does put out poison. I will say the poison rework probably kind of helped her because she has decent base attack. I mean, it comes in at 4713. She actually has the highest base attack in the game for any poisoner. That being said, her kit isn't special at all. The damage she does outside of that poison just really isn't that good. But her Lord skill is that good. It is crazy. She's got the base thing for legendaries, increasing all faction allies' basic attributes by 15%. Then she's got the same thing like Luneria, increases the attack ranges. That is so clutch. But then this thing, and I sincerely do think this is broken, and one day I will test it. For every 1 tile away from the target, increases the damage by 5% up to 50%. Even when you're 1 tile away, it feels like a lot more than 5%. The only person in the game that can benefit from the full 10 tiles away is Idril, and she definitely does. Idril plus Aracha in a lot of content is very much GG's in the chat, but this Lord skill is so potent, and for that reason, she gets some big old grades. She's an S+ hero, she's an incredible Lord, and we have some of the best heroes in the game in Piercers, and having an Aracha or a Iovar is so much better than having a Luneria. Trust me, I know, I don't have them, but I use them all the time in takeovers, and then I go back to my account and I'm stuck with my Luneria. She's so freaking good, those Aracha Piercer teams for Guild Boss 1. Guild Boss 2, still really good. If they can fix it, and actually maybe they already have, so that her spiderwebs can count as crowd control effects like they should for phase 1, she could be even better, but she's an amazing Lord there. Gear Aid 3, completely and utterly goated. Incredible for Void Rift. Kind of goes on and on. She's a very good hero. We actually are going to give her an S+ as well in AoE arena even, not just anti-air, and that is because the new metas with Nyx. This could change, but she's a really good Lord. She's kind of a meh hero, but all in all, she's such a good Lord, it literally doesn't matter. So we've got 3 left, and I think it's the 3 anyone that's ever thought about Piercers could have guessed. The question is, what order will they be in? It's Hex, it's Silas, it's Iovar. What is the order? Who's number 3? It's Hex, baby. And to me, this is the no-brainer. The really hard call was 1 and 2, as we're going to talk about very quickly. You obviously know who 1 and 2 are going to be now. I will say Hex is brilliant. Even without his exclusive artifact, totally brilliant. He's got so much in this kit in terms of freakish damage, damage over time, crowd control. There are so many little intricacies to Hex that people sleep on. He is so good. I'm very fortunate to have had him for like half a year now. I actually have A1 Hex. He is really good. A decided like top, let's say 15 hero in the whole game. However, if you can get Sutra of Capris, that is his exclusive artifact, he becomes absolutely bar none a top 10 hero, if not higher, one of the absolute best heroes in the game. Basically, there's an insanely long animation when he does his ultimate. Picking his cards, pulling his bow, so on and so on. When you have his exclusive, it just becomes not that slow, and it makes all the difference in the world. However, the condition of needing this super rare exclusive artifact that isn't part of the character and isn't part of the skills, that is a huge condition, and that is, for me, a demerit. If you get that, it completely opens him up, and he's freakish, but you cannot count on it, and to me, it's not part of his kit. It's like something you add on. It's a piece of gear you wear. It's a huge piece, and it's a game-changing piece, but because of that, we have to kind of divorce it from the kit. So this rating, I'd still give him number 3 even without it, because he's that good even without his exclusive artifact. I used him forever before they even created his exclusive artifact, and I didn't even think once, wow, my Hex is too weak. Once you get it, you're like, wow, my Hex could have been that strong the whole time, but he always was strong to begin with. Guild Boss 1, ridiculous. Guild Boss 2, ridiculous. All these things, I can't name them all. Gear Aid 5, he is the best, him and Soul Cannons by far when you need that single target magic damage. Again, even without that artifact. Void Rift, he's always been completely and utterly goated. The best single target magic damage in the game, aside from maybe Soul Cadence. I mean, he's so good, the list goes on and on. Faction Trials, he's dual faction, guys. He's Star Piercer and Infernal Blast. It's so good. I'll say the one thing, I don't think he's that good in Guild Wars. I beat him all the time. I will happily go against a Hex team. I don't find that scary at all. And personally, I don't think he's that good in Arena. Single target, he can do nice stuff. I've used him here and there in the past, but that was once I got the artifact. Before that, I never would have even dreamed of it. For anti-air, he's no good because he deals magic damage. I mean, if you're desperate, he still has such good multipliers he can make up for it. And then obviously AoE, not too special. But Hex is a total freak. He's so good for boss content, for nuking stuff. He is unbelievable. And if you get your hands on that exclusive artifact, boy, oh boy. All right, drum roll. I think this is, for me, the most exciting part of the video. Who's number 1 and who's number 2? To me, it was obvious the whole time who 1 and 2 were. The question is what order to put them in. Here you go. Here you go. 2 SSS heroes. They're both rated SSS on my website, fastidious.gg. Iovar at number 2, the ancient exclusive, completely goated legendary lord for the Piercers. And Silas, he remains number 1. So we'll talk about them both very briefly. There's not too much to say. Iovar, people are sleeping on how crazy the damage is. People are sleeping on how quickly you can cycle his ultimate, and his ultimate is crazy. You can let this go up to 12 swords, and it can be insane damage, or you can just spam it constantly, it feels like, because oh my god, he builds rage so quickly. His internal rage regen based on attack number must be through the roof. You can do either or. He's good for everything. I just did a full Void Rift takeover 2 days ago. I used Iovar in literally every stage. He is so good. And then if you want to talk end game content, and end game content, right? That's what a lot of people care the most about with these tier lists. For some of the Codex bosses, he's so stupid. He's just so good. I mean, this guy is just amazing. For some of the gear dungeons, Iovar is unmatched in some stuff. Guild Boss 1, incredible. Guild Boss 2, even better. Gear Aid 3, obviously. I'd say he's even better than Silas. For me, it would go A5 Idril, then Iovar, then Silas. Gear Aid 5, he actually can do the Hatsup job like insane, and he's a perfect lord for Hex. And if you want to bring Silas, he's so flippin' good. Void Rift, he might be the single best legendary lord in the game. All this other stuff just makes perfect sense. And then Styx, you will struggle to find a top Styx team now without Iovar. The only ones you're going to see on top are going to have Praetus, who's even more ridiculous and more rare. Iovar is king of the crop. I would rate him as the second best legendary lord in the game. I'll stand by that. He is that flipping good. I mean, Furious Torrent, he's the best character in the game. It's him and Nyx. He's the best lord by a mile. Guild Wars, I freaking hate him. Actually, single target, after what he's done to me the past 2 days, I might give him S+. Anti-air, he's the best lord in the game. He is so ridiculously good. A triple S legendary lord. So why is Silas number 1? Why is Silas even better? To me, Silas remains the second best hero in the game. It goes Praetus, then Silas, then Dolores. That is how it goes. Silas will not just do all this amazing endgame stuff, will not just be this amazing, but if you get bonded Silas, and I am going to make the distinction, it is different having bonded Silas than exclusive artifact Hex, because getting the bond skill, it then becomes part of this character, part of his kit. It is one of his skills. Bonded Silas is just the delete button. He undoes the intended difficulty of so much content by just melting. He completely just breaks the game in half. If you have him, you know that, because you use him everywhere. He is way too powerful. He scales ridiculously. He ignores defense just constantly. When you get Shadow Cloak, his ultimate, he ignores defense and magic res for 15 seconds. This can go up to 20 seconds. It can go down in cost to 900. And then the key thing, if you get that bond skill by pulling a Virna, you now have 100% increased damage from soul sniping, and soul sniping, that is the ability that comes into effect during his ultimate. However, this reads different than what it actually is. It says 100% increased damage, so to me that sounds that, okay, damage is increased by 60%, so now it's increased by 160%. No. Basically, it's just straight up 2x damage on everything. You'll even watch it as it happens, the animation. Instead of firing 1 arrows, he fires 2. It's just double hitters on everything, and it was already ignoring all the defense and all the magic resistant, so he can also destroy stuff not just with light armor or normal armor, but even heavy armor. It is completely ridiculous. Let's try to see if we can find one piece of content he's not good at. Guild Boss, he is absolutely unbelievable, especially with the Piercer Lord. Guild Boss 2, he is unbelievable. Gear Aid 1, you need magic DPS, but because he's ignoring those magic resistances, he still works. We give him an S, he can nuke that boss. Gear Aid 2, he can solo DPS the whole thing. Gear Aid 3, third best hero in the game, but just for progression push, because you're going to assume you have an Idril, most people won't have a Iovar. He is what breaks it open for so many people. He takes you from, oh my god, I'm struggling on 19 to GG, I just beat 21. He's way too easy to build. Gear Aid 4, even though you need magic DPS, because he can ignore the resistances, he's still functional. He's not good, but he's functional. Gear Aid 5, he's brilliant. AMR for nuking it down. For burst, he's completely brilliant. Void Rift, probably the best Void Rift here in the game. I would say it's probably him or Soul Cadence. Campaign, he's a freak. Faction Trials, he's a freak. Styx, if you don't have Praetus, he is the best DPS in the game. Torrent, he's not really going to help you pick out the mobs, but for putting out straight DPS, he is the best DPS in the game. It's him and Iovar. Guild Wars, he's not top, but he's still so annoying and he's so good. Single target arena, he's on many of the best teams in the game. And then anti-air arena, obviously the same thing. Silas is an absolute superstar, second best hero in the game. I don't know how he beat out Iovar, but he did. Guys, that is going to be the end of our list, the end of the Star Piercers. I know this was a long one, so thank you for sticking with me until the end. And your reward for making it to the end, hopefully you didn't just skip here, is going to be the giveaway. So how do you participate in the giveaway? We're going to have 3 winners. You have to answer a question. You have to leave your UID. So go into the game, find your UID, copy it, paste it in the comments, and answer this question. Who is your least favorite least favorite star piercer in the game. You know who mine is. I'm not going to say his name. I've been Fastidious. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. Be sure to hit the notification bell, subscribe, get in those comments, participate in the giveaway, share it with your mother, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.
Fastidious.